All right, it's week 12 of the college football season. Time to update the top 25. So, Indiana had it number one. I'm moving them down after last week's performance against the bad Penn State team. Ohio State just played recently and looked a lot better. So, Ohio State, they haven't really had a close game this season. They're the only team in the country that's undefeated. A game hasn't really ever been close. So, at this point, I think Ohio State has to be one. That being said, I'm only dropping Indiana to 2. It was their closest loss or closest chance at losing of the season, besides their game at Iowa. They won both. They're still undefeated. Everything's still in front of them. They're still one of the best teams in the country. They only fall to number 2. Texas A&M. They're going to stay at 3. I thought about moving them up to 2, but I don't want to overreact after one bad game from Indiana. Indiana did survive, and so I'm keeping them at 2. Texas A&M beat the brakes off Missouri. Really good win for Texas A&M. Alabama, they remain at 4 after a bad game against LSU, but I've got to keep them above Georgia because I respect head-to-heads. So Alabama 4, Georgia 5. That remains the same. Oregon at 6. Big win at Iowa. So they're going to remain at 6. Number 7. So Texas Tech beat BYU. Texas Tech is going to move up to 7. They beat the only remaining undefeated team in the Big 12 in BYU. So we'll see how many teams the Big 12 can get into the playoffs. I think BYU and Texas Tech, they might face again in the Big 12 title game in a few weeks, but BYU's got a few tough games ahead of them against Cincinnati and TCU, so we'll see if they can pull through those games. That game against Cincinnati is going to be huge. Anyways, moving up to 8 is going to be Ole Miss. Only one loss of the season to Georgia. They just beat the Citadel. I don't know why they played the Citadel at this point in the season, but they beat the brakes off of them, so they move up to 8. BYU, I'm only dropping to 9. First loss of the season. They have plenty of quality wins over, Utah, a few other teams. Their first loss of the season was to a really great Texas Tech team, so I'm not going to punish them too much. I'm moving Georgia Tech up to 10. They were my number 12 last week. Georgia Tech coming off a bye. But you have to have BYU ahead of them because BYU has the much better loss. Despite it being kind of a blowout, losing to Texas Tech's a lot better than losing to NC State. So BYU 9, Georgia Tech at 10. 11, so Louisville lost, so they have to move down some. 11, I'm moving Texas. Texas, they did not play, so they just move up. A lot of teams in my top 25 did not play. Vanderbilt, overtime win against Auburn. They're number 14. They're moving up to number 12. Then 13, Oklahoma, moving up 5 spots. They didn't play. But I'm moving them up because a lot of the teams ahead of them that lost were ACC teams, and I try to respect the head-to-head as much as I can. So Notre Dame moves down as a consequence of that. Utah moves from 19 to 14. They also didn't play. Their only 2 losses of the season are to my number 7 Texas Tech and number 9 BYU. So they're right there in the playoff picture. Will be interesting to see what the committee does with them, but I've got them at number 14. 15 is where I moved Virginia down to. I had them at 10, so they moved down 5 spots. Bad loss against Wake Forest. I mean, Wake Forest is 6-3 now, so not the worst loss in the world. I think it's not a great loss, but it's a better loss than people are acting like. It's just terrible loss. Wake Forest is 6-3. They're not a terrible team. You could argue they should be 7-2 because they should have beat Georgia Tech. So Virginia moves to 15. 16, I had Miami. They're going to have to move down. And Notre Dame's going to have to move down because I've got Louisville moving down to 16 after their overtime loss against Cal. Miami at 17, blowout win against Syracuse, but I respect the head-to-head, so as much as I can, I try to respect the head-to-heads as much as I can. I know a lot of people are going to vehemently disagree with this next one because I have Notre Dame at 18. Had them at 17 last week, but because of the mess of the ACC, they don't have the head-to-head over Miami, so they moved down to 18. USC moves up one spot after their Friday night win against Northwestern. And moving up to 20, I have Pitt, 7-2 team in the ACC. They still have ACC title hopes. They have Notre Dame this week. They have Georgia Tech. They have Miami to end their schedule. So 3 teams that are currently ranked higher than them are their final 3 remaining games. They are a dark horse to make the playoffs still. Moving up to 21, I have Cincinnati. They were idle. So we're moving Iowa down. Michigan moving up to number 22. They were also idle. Houston moving them to 23 after their win over UCF. Number 24, I've got my only group of 5 team that I have ranked at the moment, North Texas. They are 8-1, and they are frontrunners right now in the American Conference. After Memphis lost to Tulane, and then at 25, I actually have Iowa. You could argue that Tennessee should be there, but Iowa played really close to Oregon. So I'm keeping them in my top 25. Only removed Missouri, and I added North Texas in. Otherwise, the other 24 teams remain the same. The order is just different. Anyways, that's my top 25. Going into Week 12, Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5, Oregon 6, Texas Tech 7, Ole Miss 8, BYU 9, Georgia Tech 10, Texas 11, Vandy 12, Oklahoma 13, Utah 14, Virginia 15, Louisville 16, Miami 17, Notre Dame at 18, USC 19, Pitt 20, Cincinnati 21, Michigan 22, Houston 23, North Texas at 24, and Iowa rounding out the top 25.